The porcelain smile. It started subtly, as these things always do. My wife, Sarah, had inherited her great-aunt Mildred's house after she passed, a quaint, Victorian-era home nestled deep in the quiet suburbs, far from the city's endless hum. It was dusty, filled with antiques, and smelled faintly of lavender and forgotten memories, a scent that would soon become synonymous with dread. We decided to keep most of the furniture, as it was all beautifully preserved, but one item in particular caught my eye, or rather, my unease. It was a doll. Not a child's toy, but a meticulously crafted porcelain figure, almost life-sized, dressed in a faded white gown that seemed to have been fashionable in the early 20th century. Her delicate features were perfectly sculpted, yet there was an inherent wrongness about them. Her eyes, painted a startling shade of blue, stared forward with a permanent, unsettling smile that seemed to stretch just a fraction too wide, too knowing. Her name, according to a small, yellowed tag tied to her wrist, was Annabelle. Great-Aunt Mildred had apparently been quite fond of her. We found her propped up in the dusty attic, overlooking a collection of old trunks, as if she were guarding them, her gaze unwavering. Sarah, ever the optimist, thought she was charming and insisted we bring her downstairs, placing her in a glass cabinet in the dimly lit hallway. I had a bad feeling about it, a chill that had nothing to do with the draft from the old windows, a premonition of something deeply wrong. The first few weeks were uneventful, save for the occasional creak of the old house settling, each groan of the timbers sounding like a sigh. Then, things began. Small things, at first, almost imperceptible. I'd walk past the cabinet and swear Annabelle's head was tilted slightly differently than I remembered, her porcelain gaze now seemingly fixed directly on me. Sarah would brush it off, saying I was just imagining things, or that the old house was playing tricks on my eyes, but a flicker of doubt would cross her face. But then, my car keys would vanish from the hook by the door, only to reappear on the kitchen counter, neatly placed. Objects would shift. A book moved from the coffee table to the armchair. A picture frame turned face down, as if someone had deliberately hidden the image. We blamed each other, the cats, our own forgetfulness, anything to avoid the unsettling truth. Then came the sounds. Soft, rhythmic tapping at night. It started as a faint whisper against the walls, evolving into a distinct, delicate tap, tap, that seemed to come from the hallway, a sound too precise to be the house settling. One night, I crept out of bed, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, to investigate. The hallway was dark, illuminated only by the faint, ghostly glow of the streetlights, filtering through the antique lace curtains. Annabelle sat in her cabinet, her porcelain smile unchanging, her blue eyes fixed, seemingly on nothing, yet everywhere. But then I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from inside the cabinet, a tiny, insistent drumming against the glass. My breath hitched, caught in my throat. I can swear her tiny, painted fingers were drumming against the glass from the inside, a silent plea or a taunting rhythm. I flipped on the light, and the sound instantly ceased. Annabelle was still, serene, her hands clasped delicately in her lap, as if she had never moved, never made a sound. I dismissed it as my imagination, amplified by the unsettling silence of the house. but the image of those drumming fingers lingered. Sarah, however, started experiencing things directly. She worked from home, often alone in the house during the day, the silence amplifying every creak and groan. She'd tell me about feeling watched, a prickling sensation on her neck, a sudden, inexplicable cold spot in a perfectly warm room, the faint, cloying scent of old perfume that would suddenly fill the air, only to vanish as quickly as it appeared. One afternoon, she was in the living room reading when she heard a child's giggle, clear as day, high-pitched and unnervingly joyful, coming from the hallway. She rushed out, but found nothing. Annabelle was there, of course, her smile wider, it seemed, than usual, her painted eyes gleaming in the dim light. Sarah laughed it off, a brittle, nervous sound, but I could see the profound unease growing in her eyes, deepening the shadows beneath them. Our cats, usually rambunctious and playful, began to avoid the hallway, as if it were a forbidden zone. They would detour around it, their fur bristling, their eyes wide and fixed on the cabinet as they passed, their tails low. Our usually fearless tomcat, Barnaby, would hiss at nothing, his back arched, his fur standing on end, staring intently at the porcelain doll, as if seeing something we couldn't. It was unsettling to see their usually confident strides replaced by cautious, low-to-the-ground movements whenever Annabelle was near, their instincts screaming danger. The culmination came on a particularly stormy night. The rain lashed against the windows, each drop a percussive beat, and the wind howled like a banshee, rattling the old panes. Sarah and I were in bed, trying to sleep, but the storm, combined with the growing oppressive tension in the house, made it impossible. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, a sound of splintering wood and shattering glass that ripped through the night. We both bolted upright, adrenaline flooding our veins. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, clutching my arm, her grip like a vice. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bed, its familiar weight offering a fragile sense of security, and slowly made my way downstairs, Sarah close behind me, her breathing shallow and ragged. The hallway was pitch black, a void that seemed to swallow the faint light from the storm outside. I fumble for the light switch, my heart hammering against my ribs, each beat a drum of impending doom. When the lights flickered on, casting harsh shadows, I saw it. The glass cabinet where Annabelle resided was shattered, its wooden frame splintered as if struck by an immense force. Shards of glass lay scattered across the floor, glinting eerily under the harsh light, reflecting a distorted reality. And Annabelle, she was no longer in the cabinet. She was sitting upright in the middle of the hallway, facing the stairs, her permanent, painted smile illuminated by the hallway light, a beacon of malevolence. But that wasn't the worst part. Scattered around her, meticulously placed on the floor, were photos from our wedding album. Photos that had been stored safely in a box in the attic, forgotten for years. Photos of Sarah and me, smiling, oblivious, frozen in a moment of pure happiness. And one by one, each photo had been torn, specifically at our faces, leaving only the empty, gaping spaces where our eyes and mouths should be. A chilling act of defacement. A cold, unseen force seemed to press down on us, heavy and suffocating. The air grew thick, the faint scent of dust and old roses, suddenly overwhelming, cloying. Then from the darkness beyond the hallway, from the living room where she'd sat just moments before, We heard it again. The child's giggle. Not faint, not distant. It was right there, a high-pitched mocking sound that echoed through the shattered silence of the house, a sound of pure, unadulterated glee. Sarah screamed, a raw, primal sound of pure terror that tore from her throat. She turned and ran, bolting for the front door, her feet crunching on the glass. I didn't hesitate. The bat felt useless, a mere toy in my hands against whatever this was, this entity that defied logic and reason. I followed her, our feet crunching on the glass, a symphony of our desperate escape. We didn't stop until we were out of the house, out into the pouring rain, soaked to the bone, but feeling a desperate, fleeting sense of safety. We never went back. We called a realtor, sold the house for a fraction of its worth, not caring about the financial loss, only the escape. We never mentioned the doll, the shattered glass, the defaced photos. We just wanted to be rid of it, to escape the porcelain smile and the unseen presence that had made our home a living nightmare. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, when I'm half asleep, drifting on the edge of consciousness, I still hear a faint, delicate tapping, a rhythmic tap, tap, tap from somewhere just beyond the threshold of hearing. And I wonder sometimes if Annabelle found a new home, a new family to play with, a new set of faces to tear.